I'm Brent Mesnick with Wide Open Moto here in San Diego. Today we are going to be installing the LeoVince link pipe and muffler. We're also going to be installing the Servo Buddy from Woodcraft. Just kind of a brief summary, we're going to pull this heat shield off. We're going to disconnect these servo cables. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to pull off the heat shields here. So this is going to be a 5mm. And kind of just wiggle it out of there. We'll also just pull this heat shield off of the muffler too.
Gotta be a technique.
Yeah, you just pull it forward. You can see there's just a little rubber grommet that holds it in place that attaches to here. So we'll leave everything how it was. This is a little tricky sometimes. So what you have to do is you're gonna try to start with this one here. Yeah, it takes a little bit of pulling on it to get it to disconnect. Then once you get it disconnected, you'll just pull the cable out just like a throttle cable. And then the other one will come out also. And if you wanna keep it clean, these won't fall off because of the end of the cable, but you could just screw it back onto there so that it doesn't flop around. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do now that we got these cables off, we're gonna take the muffler and the cat off right here. So to do that, we're gonna be taking out obviously the main muffler bolt that holds the muffler on. We have an exhaust clamp right here. We also have the bracket that holds the exhaust and the cat on that's back here. And then there's another 10mm below here. So to get to those, the easiest way is we're gonna take off just this single bolt down here. Again, it's a 5mm. So we're just gonna take that off. This allows us a little bit of room to get in here. If you want to be really careful, you could take off the whole fairing here, but you don't actually need to do that to do this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use a 10mm, and we're just going to loosen up the exhaust clamp here. And the next one we're going to do is we're going to loosen this exhaust clamp here. So the next thing we're going to do is take the muffler off here, 13mm in the back. And so that will release the muffler, and then this should just slide right out. Some bikes, depending on how worn the chain out is, the wheel could be further back. On William's bike here, when we try to pull the cat out, it actually hits the rear wheel. And we don't have enough space to get it out through the header pipes. So the only thing we can do is to scoot the wheel back a little bit, just so that we can get this out. Now, if your bike's a little bit older, chain's a little more stretched, your wheel is going to be set further back in the swing arm, and you can actually slide this out without moving your wheel. But on this particular bike, we're going to have to move the wheel back. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take out the cotter pin here. So the idea is to get it as straight as possible so that you can pull it out pretty easily, right? And we're going to try to not take the wheel all the way off to do this. So we're going to loosen up the rear wheel, and we're just going to leave it like that for right now. And to get this to loosen up, because we're going to have to get the chain off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to loosen the lock nut, and I'm going to screw the adjusters in. Now, if you want to make your life easy, you can take a picture or remember where your adjusters are in relation to the notches on your swing arm. So we know these are just behind the third notch from the front, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna just bring these adjusters all the way forward so that we can get the chain off without taking the wheel off. Same thing on the other side. So that gives us enough room to slide the chain out. Now what we can do is we can just bring the wheel back. Now that the wheel's back, we've just created about an inch of space here, which should let us get the header pipe off, or the cat off.
Beautiful.
See, so that's how you get the cat off if your wheel isn't set further back in the bike. We'll go ahead and put our chain back on. This is a good time to adjust your chain if you need to. The great thing about newer bikes, tells you that the chain should be adjusted to 30 to 40 millimeters. So we know where ours were at, and it was set properly. So now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take our adjuster and we're gonna start adjusting the wheel back into place. All right, so now that we got our wheel realigned on both sides, torque spec on this is 93.7, so we'll call it 94. This one's perfectly lined up. If it's not lined up, I would suggest going tighter on the bolt as opposed to looser on the bolt to get your hole to line up. Then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take our needle nose pliers and we're just gonna rebend up our cotter pin ends here. This prevents your axle nut from coming off when you're riding really fast. So in the box with the link pipe, we got a clamp, a bolt, a couple washers, and a nut. This is what's gonna mount everything. Then you've got some clips to hold your heat shield on there. And you also have a plug and a washer. This plug and this washer are gonna go right into this hole.
Does that work?
We're just gonna install this link pipe. We left the stock clamp on here, and you also should have your exhaust gasket inside of here. Make sure it didn't come out with the old cat. From there, all you gotta do is just slide it in there nice and easy. And we're gonna take this, we're gonna take your bolt, we're gonna put a washer on there, we're gonna slide the bolt through. And what I like to do is just put a little bit of Loctite on the bolt or the nut, doesn't matter which one you put it on. So we're gonna use some red Loctite. It's gonna prevent it from backing out. And we're gonna put our washer in the back. A little tricky to reach back here, and we're just gonna start this nut. We're not gonna tighten it down all the way right now. Now what we can do is we're gonna go ahead and line up our exhaust where it should be. So in the package for the exhaust, we had, in the link pipe, we had the clamp. So we're gonna put that on right now. So this is just a little bit deformed for some reason. So we're gonna just round it out here. And depending on which way you want to put it on there, you just make sure you can access the bolt to tighten it down. So the next thing that we do with the kit that was given to us is we are going to pull out the stock rubber collars. There's a metal piece inside of a rubber collar. So we're going to take it off from the front and the back. What they've given us is 2 collars. So these collars are going to sit in here like this. They're probably not going to stay, but we're going to just show you where they go. And then you have your bolt, which is going to go through this 3rd collar. And you can see it's rounded out so that the head of the bolt sits in there really well. And what we're going to do next is we're just going to go ahead and set our muffler onto the mid pipe. This might take a little bit of wiggling. And it kind of goes right to the end of where it flares out right here. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our bolt, we're gonna stick it through here, we're gonna take one of our collars, we're gonna put it through there, we're gonna take our 2nd collar, we're gonna put it in the back, and then we're just gonna start our nut here. All right, so the first bolt that we're gonna tighten here is gonna be for the link pipe. So this is gonna be a 6mm Allen, and then on the back is gonna be a 13mm open end. So we're just gonna come over here, and get our open end on the back. And I'm gonna ask William just to hold this out of the way with his other hand. And I'm just gonna come through here and tighten this down. Now we put Loctite on here, so it should stay, but we're gonna tighten it down pretty good. So these don't need to be overly tight. We're gonna tighten it until it's snug and then just give it a little bit more. This is just squishing the header pipe around the exhaust seal. So that's tight, and then we're just gonna do a little bit more, and that's it. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna tighten this up. This one's gonna be a 5mm and a 10mm.
Sorry, dude.
You wanna make sure you put Loctite on any exhaust bolt. There's a lot of vibration, a lot of heat. You'll feel more secure that your exhaust isn't gonna fall off onto the road. The last thing that we're gonna do is they include a spring puller if you don't already have one at home. And we're gonna take our exhaust spring. Doesn't matter which way you put this on, but we're gonna take this and we're just gonna grab it and we're just gonna pull it down just like that. All right, so what I did was I put a little bit of degreaser on a fresh rag, and what we're gonna do is we're just gonna wipe our pipe down here just to make sure we wore gloves, but you still get grease on gloves. So we're just gonna take it, we're gonna wipe everything down, and just make sure it's really clean and no fingerprints are on there or grease or anything like that. Just make sure you put your metal collars back into the rubber grommets. So we're gonna start like that. We're gonna slide it in here, and we're gonna take this and we're gonna just start our bolts by hand. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna test the servo buddy, and we're gonna just make sure that we're not getting any check engine lights before we remove the whole servo and cable system. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take off the seat. To remove the clip, sometimes a tool helps, but if you can sometimes get your finger in there and just give it a little pull, it should come right out. Now what we're gonna do next is, actually there's two wires here, so both of these are gonna get disconnected. So these come both from the servo, so you have two plugs. And we're gonna take our servo buddy, we're gonna open it up here. And we're gonna just go ahead and plug it in. Here's that we're all good. We pulled out this bolt and we pull out this bolt. You shouldn't have to take very much of anything off, if anything at all. Pulling them out one by one's a little bit easier. So there's a little clamp right here that holds in the cables. Now it's just got a little tab on this side to open it up. So I'm just gonna use a flathead and I'm just gonna pull that tab open and that should release it. Now that we got that released, we can just go ahead and slide this out. And that's it. So now you got some extra storage under here with the servo removed. So now that we've got that screw out, we're gonna carefully pull it through the hole. You don't wanna drop it in there. It will be really hard to get it out. So be careful when you're pulling it out through the hole. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna replace our plug down in the bottom here and give it a pull. This one doesn't wanna come out. We're gonna try again here. This really doesn't wanna come out.
2 hours later.
We had a little bit of trouble getting the DV killer out. I think one thing to note is that as you're pulling it, it can become twisted. So this one's already loose, so I'm just gonna pull it out real quick. We already got it out, but what can happen, I think, is that it can get twisted in there and then it starts to get wedged. So just make sure when you're pulling on it, you're pulling on the side that might be in a little bit further. I feel like that's what helped get it out for us. Thanks again for watching. This is Brent with Wide Open Moto, and we'll see you guys soon.